Incorporated, as well as an environmental health funder who focuses on toxins and wireless safety. He spent the last 15 years successfully recovering his two sons from autism and sensory issues. Peter's work on detoxification and EMF have been featured in the book Toxin Talks Out, Getting Harmful Chemicals Out of Our Bodies and Our World. The book, The Out of Sync Child Grows, he's been featured in that book as well. Today, Peter will walk us through the environmental factors in your home, which have been shown to increase sensory stress and impede development and performance. He will also share why some individuals are more sensitive to environmental impacts than others based on emerging evidence of biological differences found in people with autism. He will demonstrate how a wide range of different environmental factors can overload the body, preventing it from effectively detoxing. Peter will also provide a sequence of related action steps designed to yield the most benefit with the least cost and effort. Additionally, he'll describe the range of outcomes you can expect to experience based on his 18 years of working towards sensory-friendly and healthy homes and watching his and his family's symptoms diminish over time. Thank you. Please welcome Peter Sullivan.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, let's get into it. So this is just autism in your home. We're going to talk about environmental factors in autism. So our family's story, can you hear me okay? A little close. Oh, I forgot this one. I got like 5 mics. I have 3 mics now, and I'm super wireless up. Okay. So this is our family. This is back when my sons were 4 and 6. I'm trying to remember what year this was. This is a while back. And our goal is, our both kids kind of got diagnosed in preschool, one kicked out of preschool. And we just wanted to see our kids reach their full potential. What are you laughing about, Daisy? Killing me. Okay, so 2 boys on the spectrum, and my health was impacted by the same things as the boys, but it took me a while to figure that out. My background is I was a Silicon Valley troubleshooter, an engineer, and then a software designer. So I have a little bit of this troubleshooting and engineering mentality, a very kind of like a systems level thinking and a systematic troubleshooting methodologies that I've been trained in. So I started, as soon as my first son was diagnosed with kind of more with sensory integration, I said, well, I'm sensitive too, and we're going to get through this. We started focusing on sensory-friendly homes. We're working on that for like 18 years now. And I've been funding autism research and work and environmental health work for 13 years. A lot of focus on mercury and now wireless. So I really want to, and I've done a lot of healthy homework. So I've really not just focused on one area, but I've really systematically gone through things and tried to make my home as clean as possible, and it's quite a challenge. So we're going to try to give you an overview of what to do here. So first of all, genetics versus the environment. There's a Stanford study that looked at identical twins. So very interesting. You've got identical twins. One twin has autism, one twin doesn't. That's interesting. What's different there? And so they very systematically at Stanford, they have a process for this of going through identical twins and fraternal twins and looking at all the differences. And they have had a lot of statistical math. And they found, this was back in I think 2013 or 11, on average, 38% of the contribution came from genetics. And so the remaining 62 came from the environment. So why is the money all going to the one side of things, right? So it's a little strange. So if that much is going to the environment, well, we need to really focus on that. And that was a mind blower for me. When I started out this, I thought, well, I'm sensitive, my kid's sensitive, it must be genetic. And then when we had our genes tested, there really wasn't much there, which was a surprise. So this is something I've always wanted to do, and you really don't see this. You go into these autism groups and you say, what's your environmental health strategy? I want to see a systematic approach for eliminating all environmental factors in autism. They don't have it. It's really rare to find people strategically doing it. So I'm going to try to throw up as many factors as I can on one slide. And the last time I did it, I couldn't even read the damn thing because it was kind of out of focus. So I gave you the little brochures. So it's a bit of an eye chart. Be patient. It's not even fully complete. So I've got medical risks, chemical toxins, EMF, and lifestyle. And if you can think of a better way to organize this, tell me. So obviously the one you hear about a lot is vaccine ingredients, prenatal age, Tylenol, circumcision was a risk factor, ultrasound. I've heard different things on that, pros and cons. dental failure, mercury from various factors. And those are all the medical side of things. And again, you can talk to your doctor about that. We're going to go into, so Tylenol is a big interesting one that has kind of risen in the 80s that might be related. Good paper out of Harvard on that. Okay, and I think some of the best data is really on air pollution. The Harvard study on air pollution is probably the best environmental thing we have. Mercury from the environment, from air and from other sources, food, and toxic metals in general, aluminum, glyphosate, of course, is a really big factor right now. I think EMF and glyphosate are the two that are really, and that you could throw Tylenol in there as well, of some of the things that are really rising rapidly. PCBs, and then, I always was really focused, 10, 15 years ago, I was really focused on mercury and really went deep on that. And it really is looking like it's more total toxic load, especially when you look at Scott Faber's work and what he's doing with reducing air pollution at night and looking at the total toxic serum level drop and seeing the symptoms go down. Okay, so the big ones, I think air pollution, mercury, and glyphosate, and again, total toxic load is what I would be focused on and not on one. So in the EMF world, we have wireless, electric fields, magnetic fields, dirty electricity, that's the noise on your normal electrical power line, and then ground currents electrical that flows through the soil. And of course, wireless is going up like crazy. Lifestyle-wise, screen time has been a big one. Blue light, very stimulating, a lot of ADHD behaviors, circadian rhythm disruptions from that. A lot of discussion around too much indoor time, vitamin D levels are low, too much sunscreen use, etc. Artificial light at night, indoor air quality, light flicker, food allergies, of course. Okay, so how do you translate that giant map into something that as a parent you can do? And so I've tried to prioritize this based on my experience and my experience with other folks on, what's the smallest thing you can do for the biggest impact. And so we're going to look at, these are the areas we're going to look at. We're going to look at air quality. We're going to look at wireless radiation sources, especially constant sources, water quality, lighting, including UV and IR, infrared, ultraviolet and infrared, electromagnetic fields and noise, screen time, food, and personal care products, household products, and herbicides and pesticides. Now, each of these can be an hour-long talk on its own. So we're just going to have just a quick overview of this whole thing. So let's talk about air quality. You've heard about the freeways, don't live near a freeway. Has anyone, who's heard of that? Okay, oh, I'm surprised, that's been out there for a while. Okay. So there's varying levels of how close you should be to a freeway, but you living close to a freeway raises your risk factor. Now, obviously people think about pollution, but clearly noise is a factor. And one of the other things I think is a confounding factor in this is that cell towers are also along freeways. And I'd love to see some research on the cell tower part of that. So Dr. Scott Faber, who I mentioned already, did a clean room study, which is really phenomenal. He basically used clean room technology that you'd use in Silicon Valley to make a room really pristine from an air quality perspective. And he had the kids sleeping in there at night. And just that alone as a method for detox, just reducing the particles in the air and cleaning up the air was enough to give the kids a break at night, enough to get them to detox and to have their symptoms improve, which is really remarkable. He's doing some amazing work. He's going to come out with some biomarker study this year too. Mold is clearly a factor. Has anyone had mold in their house? Yeah, definitely a major impact. The one that's been really tricky is artificial fragrances, like scented candles, fabric softeners, perfumes, colognes. Those are basically VOCs, volatile organic chemicals. Really problematic for a lot of people who become chemically sensitive. I don't know if has anyone sensitive to those things themselves? Yeah, I wasn't, and then I became quite sensitive to those, and we can talk about that a little bit later. So to really pull those out of the house and unmask, those things also mask things like mold. You may not smell the mold, you may not smell decay in your house because you've got all these masking scents. So you want to get those out of there and then get your nose to kind of become unblinded to that sort of thing. So VOCs, the volatile organic chemicals, so paints, plastics, carpets, that new car smell, not so great. Household cleaning products are really pretty tragic, actually. So we went through and tried to recommend some products for you, and I'll list those at the end. Again, there's this concept of masking. Lisa Naj, who's a doctor, environmental health doctor in Martha's Vineyard, who became very electrosensitive and chemically sensitive and mold sensitive, really calls this kind of environmental illness. And what she found, especially with mold, is that there's this masking. You go and kind of go nose blind to these things, and about 5 days out, you get removed and put in a nice, healthy environment, and about 5 days out, you're able to smell this stuff again. And then you go back and you're so nauseous you can't even go back and touch your clothes or anything. It's really interesting to listen to her work. Again, something that people don't think about, in a very closed and crowded room, the CO2 levels can also get dramatically high. And if you have CO2 levels greater than 600, which is almost all the time, you have cognitive impairment. Outside, usually about 400, and of course that's rising now. So a CO2 monitor is great. We have a CO2 monitor over here. The green tent over there I have is a wireless-free zone that you can experience. And I've got some meters over there. I've got a light flicker meter. I've got a CO2 meter and an air quality meter that I'll show you. So again, some of the solutions in air quality: a CO2 monitor, air filters, opening windows, just cracking a window open, and HRVs, so heat recovery ventilators. It's kind of like on your car. You know how your car has recycle the air or get outside air? Your house really by default is just recycling the air. So if you open a window or use a heat recovery ventilator, you're bringing in fresh air. And usually indoor air quality is worse than outdoor, except on a spare the air day. Okay, so let's get into constant wireless sources, and this has been really rising. And this is a very simple protocol we're playing with. We call it off and away. And minimally, you want to get rid of these things at night. And if you want to go farther than that, that's great. But this is just a quick trial that doesn't disrupt your lifestyle too much. So baby monitor, probably the closest source of high frequency microwave radiation right next to your kid, especially at night, is problematic. So especially if you have the video ones, they're higher bandwidth. So does anyone still have a baby monitor? Yeah, it's tough. There might be some solutions to do corded baby monitors and other ways of getting that information if you need it. Wi-Fi at night. Wi-Fi is constantly on. 10 times a second it's asking, it's basically beaconing and saying it's here, whether you're using it or not. Having your phone, a lot of people have their phones right next to their bed charging. Not a great idea. Ideally, that thing should be minimally in airplane mode, if not out of the room. And smart meters can be very problematic. A fairly constant source of wireless radiation, about every maybe 6 seconds or so, mine pings. Different models ping at different levels. If you want to go deeper on this one, and I think it's an area to go deeper on, I have a talk called Wireless, a key piece of the autism puzzle, that I've given at several conferences at Autism One. It's on video. You can watch that for free. And my website. We'll show you all at the end. Water quality, of course, I'm from Michigan, so I just drove through Flint, and lead it's just scary that lead is still a problem. It's just so sad. One of the biggest environmental health successes that we had was getting rid of lead in paint and in cars, and now we're kind of regressing. So lead is something that's a big issue. Hexachromium, Aaron Brockovich's work. Chlorine and chloramine are problematic as well. Even when you shower, this is a picture with a shower filter that helps remove chloramine, so, which is your breathing. It's kind of an oxidizing agent, basically. These kids are already over-oxidized. Fluoride, my dentist, I have a great dentist, and she's more like an integrated functional medicine doctor as well. She said fluoride really is only effective between ages 2 and 12. It's not recommended before 2, and then after 12, your teeth have kind of, matured. And so fluoride can be a thyroid and thyroid problem. It's a problem for the thyroid, and it can also be neurotoxic. So a very controversial topic there. Especially if you have fluoride in the water. Luckily, my city does not have fluoride, which is really remarkable. pH, alkaline is better. Usually their bodies tend to be a little more acidic. So if you want to have something that's a little bit at least balanced or a little bit on the more alkaline side. Some people are also measuring ORP value, the oxygen reduction potential, the rusting kind of value of the water. Again, we have a lot of oxidation in autism. We don't want to have an oxidizing environment. So the solutions, the one that I've liked, I've played around with distilling water and doing all kinds of things. I like this new zero water filter. It looks like a normal water pitcher, but it really creates distilled water almost. So it takes it down to basically nothing, at least getting the solids out, still potentially volatile chemicals and so forth, but you're really getting it down as close to distilled as you can quickly, and then debate about you can remineralize, and we'll talk about that if you want. Again, and shower and bath filters can be helpful as well. So light quality. One of the surprises for me is that I was looking at light quality, and I think the one that really got me was diffuse light. It really is nice to have soft light and not to be looking right at a light source. It seems really obvious, but we frequently have that. We have LEDs in our house that are kind of on a tilted ceiling, and it goes right in my eyes, and my wife and I fight. I turn it off, my wife turns it back on, these sort of things. So having a nice diffuse light source, like, actually right here is kind of nice. Light flicker is also really aggravating. Does anybody like that? Or is anyone triggered by light flicker? Yeah, it's the fluorescent lights. No one likes the fluorescent lights. I have a light flicker meter here. For years I hadn't been able to find one. One trick you can do with a cell phone that does slow motion is to put your cell phone in slow motion and walk around your house and video all the lights. And you may be able to see the flicker when you play it back in slow motion. And again, those would be lights. And you play around with your kids. If you find a light that's kind of flickering, and then see how your child responds when it's off or not. That's been an interesting one for me. So the color spectrum and the color temperature. So you can have really, really full spectrum lights that are very bright like the sunlight, or you can have kind of these warmer lights that are kind of orange and so forth. And I always thought, hey, why not full spectrum light? That really screwed up my sleep actually. We end up using artificial light mostly at night, and our body really wants kind of more warmer colors like sunset colors at night. So there is also an app you can use called Lux Meter Plus, and you can walk around your house and look at the different color temperatures and see which of your lights maybe have too much blue light in them or not. So another factor of lighting is CRI, which is the color render index, how good colors look under the light. So a perfect source would be 100, like sunlight, and older incandescent bulbs are 100, but a lot of the new LEDs and compact fluorescents are kind of 70, 80. If you can get above 85 or 90, it's getting better, but obviously 100 would be great too. So, and very important to think about with light quality is that light quality affects your circadian rhythms. So it's really important to get natural sunlight, including UV, in the morning and night especially, and moonlight, why not, to get really synchronized and get your body like you're camping. You really feel dramatically different. So minimize that full spectrum light at night, especially in blue lights at night. And if you're doing a lot of screen time, obviously try to do as much screen time. If you have a lot of screen time, do it in the daytime and try to minimize it at night. We're talking about interactive screen time more with the computers where you've got a non-diffuse source coming right at your face. You can use night shift on an Apple or f.lux on a PC to tone down the blue tones on your screen and really calm those things down, especially for your kids and for yourself on your cell phones and on your screens. And obviously, if you have a bedroom clock that is like a blue light, you really do not want to see blue lights at night. It drives down your melatonin. And again, in autism, we already know the melatonin is low and disrupted. So electromagnetic fields, not wireless, but we're going to talk about magnetic fields and electric fields. So a magnetic field would be like the Earth's like a magnet. So the common sources of magnetic fields in your home would be the electric panel. A clock radio next to the bed is a very common source of a large magnetic field. And then transformers, these little things that you plug into the wall, can be large magnetic fields, and almost always are. Electric fields, so a magnetic field is kind of circular, like a torus, like a magnet. An electric field is more like lightning. So this little ball, this picture off to the right, this little Tesla toy or whatever this is, where electricity is trying to go to ground. Okay, that's an electric field. The most common source of that will be, especially in a bedroom, will be a reading light lamp next to your bed with a cord. Now, even though the light's not on, the electrons are coming right off that cord. If you can measure that, and that you can be the ground. We're all carbon-based beings, so if you're next to the bed, the electrons are going to you. And so it really calms things down when you get those away from the bed or unplug them. There's various strategies for that, or shield them. Electrical noise, or it's really called dirty electricity. So we'd like to have these pure 60 hertz sine waves, a nice smooth wave in our electricity that goes back and forth 60 times a second. That's a pure wave. But frequently as electricity starts and stops, it creates a lot of jitters and little spikes. Like imagine when you turn a hose on and off and you have that little sort of thing, these transient pressure changes. The same thing really happens with electricity. And a lot of those little transformers we have and a lot of our high frequency devices chop the power up rapidly at really high frequencies and create a lot of noise. And so that's one of the factors that's been rising dramatically. It really burned me. I was 30 pounds lighter than I am now. I was 131 pounds. And my teeth were cracking. I was demineralizing because I was really getting exposed to a lot of dirty electricity at night. And then when I figured that out in 2009, I had a dramatic, swing in my health. Ground currents. Again, you can also have electrical systems that are unbalanced and don't have enough return lines or capacity, and the electricity can spill out into the ground, and as it returns to the substation, it can go through your house and under your home. I have that in my neighborhood. It's very common here, especially in Silicon Valley. So a trial solution, again, it's kind of, you can move these things away. Every time you move, the distance really makes a big difference. You can unplug it. You can also play around with circuit breakers in your bedroom. So for like a quick solution for dirty electricity would be to turn off the circuit breaker for your bedroom that does the outlets. Think about how close your head is to the outlet. And those outlets, again, are electric fields or coming off that as well as the magnetic fields. So you can play around with turning that circuit breaker off at night, and if you have an overhead light, that breaker as well. And the room should be fairly calm. You can have like a little camping lantern or something and try that a little bit and see how it works out for you. Screen time. Dr. Victoria Dunkley has made this famous with her book, Reset Your Child's Brain. Have people heard about the whole screen time situation yet? Screenagers or anything? We got one, all right. So first you'd think there's a lot of issues going on with screen time, and I saw my kids getting hyper after watching the shows, and at first I thought, well, they're getting excited. They're either getting excited by it or they're just getting triggered by the content. And there's also another factor, that our kids don't transition well from scene to scene. We don't go from place to place very well. It takes them a little while. And a lot of scene changes in movies can be very rapid. That's one of the tricks they use to create anxiety or tension in a movie is not only music for the soundtrack, but quick scene changes or even shaking camera, right? So that can create stress on its own. And so then there's also the distraction and attention issue. You're in a room, you're trying to talk to your kid, but they're watching TV. So screen time's an issue there. And we just talked about color temperature. Okay, so at night, if you get too much blue light at night, again, it's very stimulating. It starts putting the body a little bit more into fight or flight mode, basically. And what Dr. Dunkley said, which really finally made sense to me, we talk about mitochondrial dysfunction with these children and energy issues, which are some of the genetic issues going on and some of the physiological issues going on. I think, how can these kids who've got mitochondrial dysfunction be so energetic and be jumping around, right? What's going on there? That just seems wrong. You'd think they'd be laying around resting and trying to conserve their energy. So what Dr. Dunkley said finally made sense to me. She said if the body gets overstimulated, especially if it feels like it's in fight or flight mode and being attacked, the body releases energy to fight or flight. And now if you're sitting in a classroom and you can't shake off that energy, what happens? You just start feeling anxious. You've got all this pent up energy, and that's why I feel like that's really one of the real definitions. That's my real understanding of why does stimming actually happen. It's really interesting. So what Dr. Dunkley does is she does a 28-day screen fast or limit, and she's gotten kids off medication, kids with bipolar, kids with autism, to dramatically change. She's had some kids with autism who have lost their diagnosis just from reducing screen time. So worth checking out. Food, it's almost insane for me to do one slide on food. It really is a joke, and I don't really consider myself a food guru, but if you have not, I've been shocked that some people have not even looked at food. They'll do ABA, they'll do all these things, but they won't even change their own diet. My wife was quite resistant to diet changing, and we always fought over that. Obviously food allergies and sensitivities are a big factor. Organic and non-GMO foods would be key. I mean, one of the key elements there, of course, is reducing glyphosate, which has been dramatically rising. Have people seen the work on glyphosate? Yeah, it's worth checking out at like some of the talks at Autism One, Stephanie Senoff's talks. Again, reducing and eliminating inflammatory foods, because this is such an inflammatory condition like a lot of these other chronic health conditions. So getting rid of processed foods, artificial ingredients, colorings, etc. MSG, monosodium glutamate. Glutamate is a stimulator, just like we talked about with the screens. Katie Reed has done a lot of work on that and talks on that. Fried foods, so oxidized fats, sugars, obviously another inflammatory factor. Again, and also for someone who's had mercury poisoning, don't do large fish. So swordfish should really be illegal. If you have one serving of swordfish, you're usually over the safe limit of mercury for about 6 months. And then tuna is obviously a big factor as well. And you can look up, there are different apps for looking up how much mercury is in different fish. But it's usually the larger fish that are problematic because it bioaccumulates up. So again, and then from a healthy perspective, getting healthy fats and lipids, which make up our membranes, minerals, antioxidants, and I think I should also mention fiber because that was brought up this morning, and I need to fiber up. Okay, personal care products. We put these things on our bodies, and we tend not to look at the labels so much. So anything that goes on your skin, a lot of the ingredients can transdermally absorb right in. So don't put anything on your skin that you wouldn't eat. Again, we talked about fragrances and masking being a big problem. Even the natural scents can be problematic because they're kind of covering up your ability to sense what's going on. Your nose is a defensive weapon. You should be using that to create a safe perimeter for yourself. And that's I think that's one of the first things we also, when we walk into a space, does it feel safe? You smell around. And if you smell a lot of toxic stuff, it's like, I don't feel safe here, right? So the Environmental Working Group is a group that I've been working with for a long time, about 10 years now. And they have recommendations for personal care products you can look through, and household cleaning products, and also cosmetics. But they've got a ton they've gone through and just rated things, and there's just thousands of different things, and you still have to look at all the ingredients. So what we did is, my assistant is kind of a guru with all the different ingredients. She used to work at Whole Foods. So she went through and tried to find the safest products, two or three of the safest products in every category of healthcare and cleaning products and everything. And so there's the link, and that's just a free service to you guys to check that out. Pesticides and herbicides and pesticides, I haven't gone as deep on this area as I'd like to. This is the last area I want to talk about to really obviously avoid and minimize. This is an area that I kind of regret. My wife really does not like bugs. I think, if she had nukes to use on ants, she would use them. But I won't give her the codes. But I did find the other day she had hit a can of Raid. I'm very against all the pesticides and everything. She had hit a can of Raid out in the garage for ants, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, I use it outside," and oh my God. But we've been through. We used to have pest people come and spray, and we used to have flea bombs and bug. So clearly, you really want to try to do the most non-toxic solutions there possible. I also, Roundup, which we talked about glyphosate. Glyphosate's used in Roundup, so if you're spraying that around or your gardeners are spraying that around, ask them to minimize that. Remember, glyphosate is also registered as an antibiotic. So any food you're eating or anything that's going in your stomach is killing the gut flora that we just talked about this morning. So the solutions, again, ask your family members, gardeners not to spray, and then do a little research on non-toxic herbicides and pest controls. There's all kinds of ways to kill weeds with vinegar and all kinds of tricks. I need to go a little deeper there to share that with you, but I haven't gotten to it yet. So here's my simple, from a parent perspective and environmental perspective, kind of recovery checklist. So you have to be in a safe environment first, right? So it's like leave the war zone or, calm down the situation. 9% of children, autistic children flee or runaways from safe homes. Does anyone have a runaway kids that run away? Okay. You're like my favorite person. You're saying yes to everything. You got it all, baby. All right, well, let's go. So my child was a runner. Mostly it was at Target though. Like we would go into Target and he would just disappear, right? So I think it's really important for people not to assume that your home is a safe environment. Can't remember the last time I walked into a home and walked in and said, oh, this is a perfectly safe environment and I can't find anything here. I've been working on this for 20 years. My house is still not totally perfectly safe. And I have time, money, expertise, and whatever. It is a process. And so I don't want to overwhelm you, but I'm trying to give you a hierarchy. But just don't assume things are safe. Sometimes it's good to step out of your house, go camping for a while, someplace off the grid, and then step back into it. So it's important that you not only are in a safe environment, but that your body is calm and feels safe. And Dr. Green and I were just talking about Bob Navio's work on cell danger mode, but your body has to drop down. Your cell being in fight or flight mode is not a sustainable state. It's meant to last for minutes or hours or whatever. We're not supposed to be living in fight or flight mode. And when you're in fight or flight mode, as Bob says, it deprioritizes detoxification and several other things. It's not a clean, you don't clean up the kitchen if someone's chasing you around with a knife. It's not a priority. The priority is survival for that day. So if your body thinks it's being attacked, or even if the flora in your gut feel it's being attacked, if you have a magnetic field with a harsh pulse, which is going through your whole body, or a wireless signal, and the gut flora feels like it's being attacked and releases toxins, and it goes up the vagus nerve, right, you're anxious. I've definitely had situations where I've been anxious from EMF exposure and I feel it in my gut. So I need to do a little more work on the gut thing with EMF, but there are some papers out there on that. So your body has to feel calm, and I think some people have talked about some of these exposures being like environmental post-traumatic stress. So even if you get them out into a safe environment, the people are still locked up. And as Dr. Green said this morning, it's even just the perception that something's unsafe can get your body into that mode. And we really need to kind of calm things down. I think that's what a lot of the CBT is doing. And other things like magnesium and other tactics. The other one that we want to talk about is the circadian rhythms. So again, what I didn't understand until a physician told me 2 years ago at one of the conferences, that when your circadian rhythms are in sync, it's a lower inflammatory state. So when your body is out of sync, it's a pro-inflammatory state, just like fight or flight mode. So because inflammatory load is one of the key factors, key biomarkers of autism, having your circadian rhythms in sync and being synced up with the light and not just watching screens and being completely out of touch with your sleep cycle is really a key factor for recovery. And another factor we talked about, or we haven't talked about at all, is the cranial pump and rhythm. So at night, we're supposed to be cleaning. We just, doctors have discovered that the focus of sleep is around cleaning your brain. And the glial cells shrink, and the pump goes through and just kind of washes things out. Now, if you've got a lot of inflammation, if you've got, let's say, lights on at night, and your body thinks it's daytime, do the glial cells shrink? No. If you have wireless on at night, wireless is light at a lower frequency than we can see. The photons are still hitting the body. We don't have a special filter that says, oh, that's just this. The body still thinks it's kind of like daylight at that point, even though it's a low wattage. So a lot of EMF, a lot of discussion about melatonin disruption from EMF exposure. So you want to be in sync, and then that pump needs to work. So if anyone's had good success with cranial sacral therapy or even chiropractic, it can actually be really helpful in this process. Sleep well. You need to sleep well, period. It's part of the whole thing. And then obviously the doctors have talked about the gut stuff as well, and you can talk to your doctor about all that stuff. I'm kind of giving you kind of the parent view. And so from my perspective, it's reducing inflammatory load, and a lot of that is under our control. A lot of that's from the gut stuff and diet and toxins and et cetera, what we just talked about. And one of the biggest inflammatory factors is wireless, and people don't know that right now. So now at this point, if you've stepped through all that, it really feels like you've gone through a good checklist, and you've gone through and got your gut healing and so forth. Now you can really repair, detox, grow, be social, and do all those things, move on to those things, and catch up and get out of the state of overload. So I'll tell you what's going on with my kids now. These guys are a little bit bigger now. My son Jack is at Berkeley. He's studying computer science and stats, double majoring. He's looking at just doing some research. He's had internships at Tesla and now Google, and he's looking to get his master's degree. And I think he's going to try to stay at Berkeley. My son Max just started studying physics at Berkeley. Max, both of these kids, Jack got kicked out of preschool and was in special ed, and now he's at one of the best schools in the country. Max didn't get kicked out. We made some progress, but his teacher said he's just staring off in the corner and not playing with anybody. So Max kind of came back online slowly, and it's a slow melting. The symptoms really go slowly, and he eventually, obviously, has a ton of friends. He just got, when he graduated from high school at the end of the year, he got Best Actor. He got selected for a theater group called Broken Box, which was highly competitive to get into, and he was awarded Best Actor. So you get a child who was staring off at the corner, not playing with anyone, up on a stage, delivering, these dramatic performances that make you want to cry. And and it's just, it happens so slowly, the melting away, that you almost don't see it. But it's really, I just want you to, and I think Daisy's gone through this a little bit, and just keep looking at their eyes and just wait for the eyes to come back online. And that's what our goal is. So I'm healthy. My weight, I said I was 130 pounds. I was not sleeping well. I had mercury poisoning. I had too much radiation exposure from my own home and from a military base in Sunnyvale, which I did not know about. It took me 5 years to figure out. It was the Osanaka Air Force Base. It's a space radar system, which is now with Lockheed Martin. So I'm sleeping well now. I'm about 30 pounds up again. I'm really happy with how my health is going. My wife was not dramatically affected by this. So for us, autism is a distant memory, all is well. And of course, I want this for every child and family currently living with autism. Let's see. All right. I guess I should have changed these slides, I guess. But so here's a range of what you can expect. So that happened to us, but I've seen a lot of things. I've seen children calm down and sleep in after making some of these changes, especially the EMF changes, or the screen and light changes. Okay, improved sleep. We've had rapid improvement in some cases. We had one child who was nonverbal autistic boy who they just did the EMF protocol. They turned off the baby monitor, cell phone, or cordless phone base station, Wi-Fi, and then the circuit breaker at night. They're going to try that for 2 weeks. After 3 days, the nonverbal boy spoke a full sentence. Worth trying. I'm just saying, worth trying, and it's free. In most cases, that won't happen to you. That's pretty dramatic. But what will happen is just kind of a slow melting if the kids start to catch up. So you could see this slow, steady improvement. You might see, regression from detox. So once in a while, this happens, and then the body starts detoxing, and you see a little regression. It's very common that you will have conflict with a spouse, child, or family, especially when you're talking about screen time, diet, EMF. If your spouse works in tech and you want to start removing wireless, people get really triggered. I'm from that industry. I can tell you it was hard for me to take, and it's really a challenge. Again, you may see no change at all. You may need to really keep going deep. You may need to do all the deep stuff with all the doctors and everything, but that's just what you can expect. So here's some resources. So I've got a website, Autism, and all the slides can be found at autism-home at clv.us. The Safe Product Guide I talked about is there as well. The larger website, clearlightventures.com, the shorter one. We also have a Facebook group called Autism and EMF, and we've got about almost 1,400 members at this point. We're all talking about how to start lowering these things. You tend to need a little bit of support going through this. It's quite complex. So we have some experts. And some of the experts that we talked about, you can get a building biologist, an environmental consultant, to come to your home. So if you think you have a sick home, and I would say most people's homes are not perfectly healthy, have the person go through and really assess things from mold, air quality, EMF, etc. And again, you can find a doctor from the American Association of Environmental Medicine, like Lisa Naj. There's a great article in Paleo magazine in August and September that mentioned a lot of these environmental factors. I'm quoted in the article, and some of the doctors who are environmental health doctors are talking about that as well. What else? Is that it? That's it. Any questions, or how are we doing on time?
Yeah, we've got some time for questions, and then
Okay.
we'll go out to lunch.
Mike? Oh, there. Oh.
Actually, my name is Ranjini, not Mike. Sorry. Okay.
That was awesome.
All right. Let's see. I want to make sure this is a. Can you explain a bit? So, okay, this is for Peter, I think. Okay. What is a good EMF meter to use for home? Can you provide some resources for shielding different sources of EMF at home?
Sure. Yeah, we discussed a lot of it in the group that we talked about on Facebook. I have two of the meters here today that are fairly, pretty good quality. I have an acoustimeter and a gigahertz meter that'll measure kind of four things that I think are really key. There's a cheaper meter, a cornet meter, which I didn't bring with me. I should have brought with me, but you'll find that on the web. So a cornet meter is about $139 or $179. The acoustimeter is around almost $400. The gigahertz meter that will measure magnetic fields, electric fields, and the dirty electricity as a magnetic field is about $400 as well. So those are over there. So I have to reference also, I have this green tent. See this crazy tent over here? That's built with shielding material. So that was the second part of the question. So that's built with a shielding material and it's grounded. If you go inside there, you can see we'll have a meter on the outside. You can take the meter on the inside. The wireless levels, which are fairly moderate in this building, will drop to 0. And tell me what your experience is. Some people have a felt experience immediately when they go in. It can be more dramatic. At Autism 1, it was 3,000 microwatts, and here it's like 300. So some people it might be more dramatic here, or it might be better here. So I want to hear what people have to say. So the shielding materials, I recommend people turn things off first. Turn off as much as you can. Don't even buy anything until you know this is good for you. So do all the free protocols, off and away and turning things off. And then if you start to get some good feedback and it feels like this is worth the investment, and then move into it lightly. And you may want to get a building biologist to professionally do it. You may want to buy your own meter. We'll give you a range of choices. And there's a company called lessemf.com that has shielding material. They have paints. They have a canopy that you can put over your bed. So you don't have to build a room or do painting. Or I think Dr. Klinghardt works with a lot of canopies. He's been doing EMF stuff for a while with autism. And he puts a canopy over the kid's bed.
Can you explain a bit more about your past health issues involving electricity impacts that seem to cause demineralization and weight loss?
So I had, I had food allergies in about 2000, food allergies and fatigue in about 2002 and 2003. And of course you start with food. And I was starting with food and enzymes. I hadn't done anything biological. I just started playing with that. And then I got hooked up to, understood, toxic metals. I had mercury poisoning. My kids had high metal levels. We worked with a local doctor who helped us reduce those in a pretty non-invasive way. But then even after my toxic metal levels were reduced, and I thought I'd remineralized and done all that stuff, I was sleeping really, really poorly. And it was really bad. So I was playing around with, everyone starts playing around with melatonin and all these things to try to settle themselves down. I was doing neurofeedback. I had tried everything. And the thing that helped the most was really the EMFs. And I found that there was, dirty electricity. I think there was something, I don't know all the details. I think definitely vitamin K was something that helped me. Vitamin K, I think, helps calcium. Calcium go to the right place. Vitamin K was a good supplement for me, and a couple other things that helped me deal with EMF while I was just getting totally fried. So there is something with, I think of your body as, I think of your bone, the minerals in your bone. Your body's a battery. I think of your bone as like your battery store, if it's a savings, this is like your savings account. So if your body's using a lot of energy, it's like demineralizing. I think that Dr. Green would have more to say about this than I would, but my body was not doing well.
In your opinion, what is the best way to assess mold in the environment? If mold is suspected as a factor, there are a lot of companies making competing claims, and it's unclear what the optimal approach is.
Okay. I would go in this area. There's a group called Healthy Building Sciences. They're one of the largest building biologist companies in the country. And there's a building biology conference coming up if you're really into that. That conference, a couple of years ago, had a mold expert talking. I think it was Dr. Hope. So you can look at her paper. But I don't consider myself a mold expert, so I kind of defer off to those folks. I literally just had water damage in my house a couple of weeks ago, and we're just cleaning everything out now. But just don't ignore mold issues. They can be, there can be various levels of mold. That can be mycotoxins, can be quite a factor, and you or your child can be very sensitive to mold.
What are the options for shielding protection when your child's classroom is about 100 feet away from a cell phone tower and there's not an option to move him out of school? How do you shield yourself, kids, from the dozen of neighbors' Wi-Fi, even if yours is turned off?
Okay. A lot of people have this hopeless thing. Well, my neighbor's Wi-Fi is on, even if I turn mine off, it's not going to help that much. Actually, the closest sources will have the most impact. So every time if you double the distance, like if you take this phone, you go from here to here, the level just went down 75% because it's spreading out in 360 degrees. So when you move it, when you just double it, it went down 75%. So if you turn it off or move it away, it's really impactful. So some people who have found, who even had let's say a person has a cell tower right outside their home, they have found that even reducing the wireless, cordless phone, all that stuff in their own control does still have a dramatic effect, especially the stuff in your bedroom. So don't give up hope there. And I know in a lot of situations like the cell tower in the school, there's not a lot I can do there. It's a little bit out of my control, but I think we're trying to focus on, start with what you can control and do all that, and you may be able to just get your head above water with that.
What would you say about Alexa and conversational gadgets and EMF?
My wife works for Google, and she brought home a Google Home device. Unfortunately, they're all Wi-Fi. I don't know of anyone's that's pluggable in, and so you have to measure each one. I haven't measured an Alexa. I think they're fantastic, right? You talk to them, you do all this stuff. If you want that to happen, if you can make it work on a desktop computer that's got a Ethernet connection plugged in, then you can get some of the benefits without the wireless constantly going on.
What would you suggest for portable air purifier cleaning systems?
Portable ones. There's one I'm playing with right now that I really like. It's called Molecule, spelled like molecule, but instead of a C, it's with a K. And it's got some sort of technology where it's breaking up particles at a lower level, and it actually blows up mold, which is quite interesting, so I've been using that. I'm pretty happy with the design of it and the portability of it and so forth. But it's a little tricky. It's got blue light coming out of it at night, so that's my one hesitation. It also has a wireless signal coming off to do something to check on the filters. That can be turned off. The blue light at night is going to be a little tricky to work around, but that's been a fun toy. I would look on Allergy Buyers Club. I would go to Allergy Buyers Club and look at the most popular systems for the most chemically sensitive people on Allergy Buyers Club. There's 3 different systems there. I haven't gone through and tested them all for EMF yet, and I need to do that at some point. I'm trying to come up with something like a parent's version of what Dr. Faber's doing that would combine not only air quality, but the low EMF.
Do you have any other treatments for your kids besides environmental?
Oh, sure, we did all kinds. We did all kinds of sensory things. We did everything that you guys all do. They did well with craniosacral therapy. I'm trying to think what else. Actually, as an adult now, the one that I do is cryotherapy, which I think is just really interesting for inflammation. I think that's something if you're an adult who's electrosensitive or whatever, getting that inflammatory load down is quite interesting, and I think that's worth playing with. The Epsom salt baths are fantastic. So one important thing with EMF is that if you're low in magnesium, which almost everyone is, your voltage-gated calcium channels are overactive, and they let too much calcium in, and that essentially raises nitric oxide and creates peroxynitrite, which is a very damaging molecule in the body and creates inflammation and damage. So having proper levels of magnesium can really help offset that. So Epsom salt baths, various forms of magnesium. I think it's the Life Extension is a magnesium threolate that's tested to get magnesium deeper into the brain and the spinal system. But I'm not a doctor. Talk to those guys about that.
2 more questions. Is there any blood testing that can be done to check effects of these water, EMF, food quality issues like checking for thyroid, etc.? Yeah,
we're trying to get biomarkers for, I think Scott Faber's coming out with a ton of biomarkers later this year when he publishes that paper, so I can't talk about that anything there yet. But some of this, let's see, what would be easy? So easy, you hate to kind of poke and prod the kids so much too, right? I think, I'm not a doctor, so the testing part, I think mine really would, I would say, have a building biologist test your home or get your own meter, and then remove everything that's unsafe, and then see what happens. That's a starting point, and then find a good environmental health doctor, and they do this all the time.
And finally, can you update us on California legislation status for Wi-Fi?
Yes, well, this week was a rough week for, does anyone know about SB 649? So it's a Senate Bill 649 allows cell towers to go in anywhere on public right-of-ways and utility poles without any approval from a city or citizens or counties at all. And so it went through the Senate quickly. We actually got quite a bit of no votes and so forth in the Assembly, but it still passed, and now we're working with the governor. But if 5G rolls out, there'll be 50,000 more cell towers in California, and you will have no say in where they go if that passes. So if you search for SB 649, if you want to call the governor, if you're worried about that, I would call the governor and ask him to veto that. They really did not review the bill for health at all, and there are thousands of studies on EMF, the health effects of EMF. Great professor at Berkeley in public health, Joel Moshkowitz, has been working on the issue. A woman a doctor down in Beatrice down in San Diego, I'm forgetting her last name, has been working with a lot of electrosensitive adults, and also wrote a great letter to the governor on this topic. So if you search for SB 649, if you take some action, I'd really appreciate that for me and for you.
Thank you so much. On that note, thank you so much, Peter. And can we all give him a round of applause?
Thank you.
That concludes the first half of our conference. For the next 60 minutes, you will enjoy a Chipotle